The night before Christmas, my father kicked me out of our family apartment because my sister demanded it. I didn't argue. I just looked at him and said, not to worry, I'd leave that same night. What he didn't know was that every single bill, every utility, every service that kept their lights on was in my name. The next morning I canceled everything. Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm 32, a financial analyst and startup founder living in Chicago. For the past 3 years, I've been the one keeping my family afloat, paying rent, utilities, groceries, everything. My parents think I'm just their responsible daughter. They have no idea. I've been building something that would change everything. You know that moment when you realize your entire family sees you as nothing more than a walking ATM? Mine came at 11:47 p.m. on December 23rd, when my father stood in the doorway of what I thought was our shared apartment and told me to pack my things. Jessica needs the space for her art studio, he said, not even looking me in the eye. You can find somewhere else to stay, Jessica. My 28-year-old sister who hadn't held a job for more than 6 months in her entire adult life. Jessica, who spent her days painting abstract masterpieces that looked like a toddler, had an accident with finger paints. Jessica, who somehow convinced our parents that her artistic vision was more important than the person actually paying for the roof over their heads. I stood there in my business clothes, laptop bag still on my shoulder from another 14-hour day building my fintech startup, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, not hurt, something much more dangerous. Clarity. Fine, I said. I'll be gone tonight. My father actually looked surprised. I think he expected me to beg, to grovel, to remind him of everything I'd done for this family. Instead, I walked to my room and started packing. Here's what my family didn't understand about me. I'm not just some corporate drone who happens to make good money. I have a master's in financial engineering from Northwestern. I've spent the last decade understanding exactly how money flows, how dependencies work, and how to identify single points of failure in any system. Our family was a system. And I was about to show them what happens when the primary load-bearing component gets removed. See, 3 years ago, when my parents were facing eviction and my dad's small business was failing, I didn't just help out. I completely took over. I put the apartment lease in my name. I transferred all the utilities. I set up automatic payments for everything from their cell phones to their streaming services. I even bought them a car and kept the insurance under my policy. Why? Because I loved them. Because I thought family meant something. But as I folded my clothes that night, I remembered all the little moments that should have been red flags. How Jessica always got the bigger bedroom, even though I paid the rent. How family dinners always revolved around her latest project while my actual business success was dismissed as just numbers. How every time I brought up feeling unappreciated, I was told I was being dramatic. The final straw wasn't even the eviction. It was what Jessica said as I walked past her toward the door. Don't be such a martyr, Sarah. You act like paying bills makes you special. I stopped, turned around, smiled. You're absolutely right, I said. Paying bills doesn't make me special at all. I spent that night in a hotel downtown, but I wasn't sleeping. I was on my laptop, systematically documenting every single financial obligation I'd been covering. The list was longer than I'd realized. Apartment rent, $2,800, month utilities electric, gas, water, internet, $340 month parents' health insurance premiums, $890 month car payment and insurance, $650 month. Groceries and household expenses, $800 month their credit card payments, $1,200 per month total monthly burden, $6,680 annual, $80,160 in 3 years. I'd essentially gifted my family nearly $250,000. And their response was to kick me out from my sister's art studio. At 6 a.m. on Christmas Eve, I started making calls. Hi, this is Sarah Chun calling to cancel my electric service at ... Yes. I'd like to disconnect gas service immediately. ... I need to terminate my internet plan. ... Each call was surgical, professional, polite. By 9 a.m., I'd canceled everything. Electric, gas, water, internet, cable. I called the car loan company and informed them the vehicle needed to be repossessed due to non-payment I'd been current. But that was about to change. I canceled their health insurance effective immediately. I even called their cell phone provider and removed my credit card from autopay. The beautiful part? Everything would shut off gradually throughout the day. Gas first around noon, electric by 3 p.m., water by evening. The perfect timeline for a Christmas Eve revelation. But I wasn't done. See, my startup wasn't just some side project. For 2 years, I'd been developing an AI-powered financial compliance platform. We'd been in stealth mode, bootstrapping everything while I lived off my savings and used my analyst salary to support my family. That morning, while my family was probably just waking up and wondering why the heat wasn't working, I got a call that changed everything. "Sarah, we need to talk immediately." My co-founder's voice was shaking with excitement. "Goldman wants to acquire us. Full acquisition. They're talking 8 figures. 8 figures. More money than my parents would see in 10 lifetimes. Money that was about to land in my bank account while they sat in a cold, dark apartment, wondering what went wrong." I hung up the phone and smiled. For the first time in years, it felt genuine. My phone started buzzing around 2 p.m., Dad's number. I let it go to voicemail, then Mom, then Jessica. By 6 p.m., my father had called 47 times. I finally listened to the last voicemail. "Sarah, please call back. There's been some kind of mistake with the utilities. Everything's shut off and they're saying you canceled ... This has to be an error. Call me back. We're supposed to have Christmas dinner tonight." Christmas dinner. The dinner I'd spent $400 preparing for. The dinner where I'd planned to announce my startup's success. The dinner where, for once, I thought I might get some recognition for everything I'd sacrificed. Instead, I was sitting in my hotel room, watching my bank account notification light up with the first wire transfer from Goldman Sachs, while my family sat in the dark learning what my absence actually cost them. The irony was delicious. Tomorrow would bring a reckoning they couldn't even imagine, because this wasn't just about canceled utilities. This was about 3 years of financial records that told a very different story about who the real victim was in this family. And I had receipts for everything. Christmas morning arrived with the kind of bitter Chicago cold that seeps into your bones and stays there. I woke up in my suite at the Fairmont. Yes, I'd upgraded myself to 17 missed calls and a string of increasingly desperate text messages. "Mom, 6:23 a.m. Sarah, honey, there's no heat or lights. Can you help us figure this out?" "Dad, 6:45 a.m. The gas company says you canceled service? This has to be a mistake." "Jessica, 7:12 a.m. Stop being dramatic and fix this. People are coming for dinner." That last one made me laugh out loud. Jessica, who had never paid a utility bill in her life, was ordering me to fix this like I was the family handyman instead of the person who'd been subsidizing her entire existence. I ordered room service, fresh coffee, eggs Benedict, the works, and opened my laptop. It's time for phase 2. See, when you're a financial analyst, you develop certain habits. You document everything. You save every email, every bank statement, every receipt. It's not paranoia, it's professional discipline. And over the past 3 years, I'd accumulated a very interesting paper trail. The Goldman Sachs acquisition wasn't just changing my bank account. It was changing my perspective on what constituted acceptable family dynamics. When you're struggling to keep your startup afloat while supporting ungrateful relatives, you tell yourself it's temporary, that it's worth it, that they'll appreciate you eventually. But when you're suddenly worth $12.3 million, the math looks very different. I spent Christmas morning creating what I like to call my family financial impact report. It was beautiful, a comprehensive analysis of every dollar I'd contributed, every sacrifice I'd made, and every instance of being taken for granted, all laid out in clean spreadsheets and professional charts. The numbers were staggering, even to me. Direct financial support, $241,680 over 36 months. Opportunity costs money I could have invested, $89,400. Emergency payments, medical bills, car repairs, etc., $23,800. Loans that were never repaid, $15,600. Total family subsidy, $370,480. But the real masterpiece was the timeline I created, cross-referencing my financial contributions with their treatment of me. Every time I'd covered their rent, there was a corresponding entry about Jessica getting my bedroom, or my achievements being dismissed, or being told I was too focused on money. The pattern was clear. The more I gave, the less they respected me. My phone rang again. Dad, for the 51st time. Sarah, please, your mother is crying. It's Christmas. Whatever's wrong, we can fix this. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost, Dad. I said, my voice calm and professional. Nothing's wrong. Everything is working exactly as intended. What do you mean? The utilities were in my name, and I canceled them, just like you canceled my place in this family. Silence. Sarah, you're being ridiculous. We never canceled anything. Jessica needed my bedroom for her art studio. So I gave her what she wanted. Now she has the whole apartment to paint in. Permanently. I could hear him processing this. You can't just leave us without heat and electricity. Your mother has health issues. Then maybe you should have thought about that before prioritizing Jessica's artistic ambitions over your daughter who actually pays the bills. We can talk about this. Come home. We'll figure something out. Home. Like it had ever really been my home when I could be evicted from it on a whim. Dad, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I'm done. Done paying your bills. Done being your safety net. Done being treated like the family ATM. You made your choice. Now live with it. I hung up, but I wasn't finished. Not even close. You see, my financial engineering background had taught me something important. When you're dealing with a system failure, you don't just address the immediate problem. You identify all the interdependencies and plan for cascading effects. My family was about to experience a very comprehensive system failure. I opened my laptop and began Phase 3, documentation for legal purposes. In Illinois, when you've been financially supporting family members who then constructively evict you, there are legal remedies available. Especially when you have 3 years of bank records proving a pattern of exploitation. I drafted a formal demand letter requesting immediate reimbursement of $370,480 in financial support provided under false pretenses. I included every receipt, every bank transfer, every payment I'd made on their behalf. The letter was professional, thorough, and absolutely devastating. But the legal angle was just the appetizer. The main course was about to be served at 3 p.m., when their Christmas dinner guests started arriving to a cold, dark apartment. See, my parents had been bragging about this dinner for weeks. Dad's business partners were coming, Mom's book club friends, the neighbors they'd been trying to impress. Even Jessica's pretentious art school friends were expected. All of them were about to get a very educational lesson about the difference between lifestyle and actual financial capacity. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother Mike in Seattle. He was the only family member I still respected, probably because he'd moved away early and built his own life. Mike, Dad called me freaking out about utilities being shut off. Says you had some kind of breakdown? What's going on? I called him immediately. Mike, I need you to understand something. I didn't have a breakdown. I had a breakthrough. I spent 20 minutes walking him through everything, the 3 years of financial support, the constant dismissal of my achievements, and finally being kicked out for Jessica's art studio. Mike was quiet for a long time. Then, Jesus, Sarah, I had no idea it was that bad. I mean, I knew you were helping them out, but $370,000? $370,480. I have spreadsheets. Of course you do. He actually chuckled. So, what's your plan, honestly? I'm still figuring it out. But step 1 was removing myself as their financial safety net. Step 2 is making sure they understand the actual cost of their choices. And step 3? I looked out the hotel window at the Chicago skyline, thinking about the Goldman Sachs money that would officially hit my account on Monday, about the startup that was about to make me independently wealthy, about the family that had just taught me the most expensive lesson of my life. Step 3 is building a life where I never have to depend on people who see me as disposable. Mike was quiet again. Dad's going to lose his mind when those dinner guests show up, I know. Mom's probably having anxiety attacks, I know, and Jessica's probably still somehow making this about her. Definitely. Good for you, Sarah. It's about time someone called them on their shit. After we hung up, I decided to take a walk. Chicago was beautiful on Christmas Day, quiet, peaceful, covered in fresh snow. I found myself walking past Lincoln Park thinking about how different this Christmas was from what I'd planned. I'd imagined announcing my startup's success over dinner, seeing my family's faces when they realized their just a numbers person daughter had built something extraordinary. I'd imagined finally getting some recognition, some respect. some acknowledgement that I was more than just a source of financial stability. Instead, I was walking alone through empty streets, richer than I'd ever dreamed of being, and completely cut off from the people I'd spent 3 years trying to support. But you know what? I wasn't sad. I was relieved. My phone rang at 4:17 p.m. "Mom, this time. Sarah, please come home. Everyone's here and we have no way to cook dinner." The Johnsons brought their famous dessert and Mr. Peterson came all the way from Naperville. "This is humiliating." "Then you should have thought about that before you let Jessica kick me out." "She didn't kick you out? She just needed—" "Mom, stop. I have 3 years of text messages, emails, and financial records that tell a very clear story. Would you like me to share them with the Johnsons and Mr. Peterson? I'm sure they'd be fascinated to learn exactly who's been paying for your lifestyle." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. "Sarah, you're scaring me. This isn't like you." "No, Mom. This is exactly like me. This is what I'm like when I stop letting people take advantage of my generosity. This is what I'm like when I remember that respect is a two-way street. We do respect you. You kicked me out of my own apartment for Jessica's art studio. The apartment I pay for. You want to talk about respect? Show me one time in the past 3 years when any of you treated my career, my achievements, or my sacrifices with even basic courtesy." She couldn't. We both knew she couldn't. "The Goldman Sachs deal closes Monday, Mom. I'm about to be worth more money than this family will see in 3 generations. And you know what the beautiful part is? You'll never see a penny of it. Because you taught me that family is conditional and I'm a very good student." I hung up and turned off my phone. The next few hours were blissfully quiet. I had a massage at the hotel spa, ordered an excellent dinner from room service, and spent the evening reviewing the acquisition paperwork that would officially make me wealthy beyond my previous dreams. When I finally turned my phone back on at 11 p.m., I had 73 missed calls and 45 text messages. The most recent was from Jessica. "You're being a selfish bitch. Fix this or I'm telling everyone what a vindictive person you really are." I screenshot the message and added it to my growing file of evidence. Because tomorrow was going to bring a whole new level of consequences. The utilities being shut off was just the beginning. What my family didn't know yet was that their credit was about to take a very interesting turn. See, when you co-sign for people's loans and credit cards, and then you suddenly disappear from their financial ecosystem, it creates what economists call a liquidity crisis, and I was about to teach my family exactly what that meant. The war was just getting started. Monday morning brought 2 things: the official wire transfer from Goldman Sachs hitting my account, and the sound of my family's financial house of cards beginning to collapse. I woke up in my hotel suite to a notification that made me smile. *** account balance. $12,347,892.33 ** $12 million. More money than my parents had made in their combined lifetimes. Money that materialized while they spent Christmas weekend huddled under blankets, eating cold sandwiches by candlelight, trying to explain to their humiliated dinner guests why their successful daughter had apparently abandoned them. But the real entertainment was just beginning. My phone had been buzzing since 6 a.m. with increasingly frantic messages. I scrolled through them while sipping coffee that cost more than my family's daily food budget. "Dad, 6:03 a.m. Sarah, the mortgage payment bounced. The bank is calling." "Mom, 6:47 a.m. Honey, please call back. We need to talk about this rationally." "Jessica, 7:23 a.m. My car got repossessed." "What did you do?" That last one made me laugh out loud. Jessica's car, the one I'd been making payments on for 18 months because she needed reliable transportation for her art career, was now sitting in an impound lot. The repo company worked fast. But the mortgage situation was particularly interesting. See, while the apartment lease was in my name, my parents owned a small house in Schaumburg that they'd been renting out for extra income. What they'd forgotten was that I'd co-signed their mortgage refinance 2 years ago when they needed cash for Dad's failing business. When you co-sign a loan and then your credit profile suddenly shows massive income changes, like, say, a $12 million acquisition, the bank gets very interested in your continued involvement, especially when the primary borrowers have been making their payments from an account that you've been funding. I'd called the bank Friday afternoon to remove myself as a co-signer, which triggered an immediate review of the loan terms. The bank discovered that my parents' actual income couldn't support the mortgage without my guarantee. Hence the bounced payment and the very urgent calls they were about to receive. But I was just getting warmed up. My next call was to my attorney, David Chun, no relation despite the name. David specialized in financial exploitation cases, and he'd been reviewing my family's situation since Saturday. "Sarah, this is potentially criminal," he said without preamble. The pattern of financial dependency they created, combined with the sudden eviction, could constitute elder financial abuse in reverse, adult children exploiting a financially successful sibling. What are my options? Several. We can file for restitution of the $370,480 you documented. We can pursue them for emotional distress and constructive eviction. But the most interesting angle is the fraud aspect. Fraud? Think about it. They allowed you to believe you were contributing to a family unit where you had equal standing and security. Then they demonstrated that your status was actually contingent on your continued financial contributions. That's essentially wire fraud, using false pretenses to obtain money. The legal implications were fascinating. But I had a more immediate concern. David, I don't want to destroy them. I want them to understand what they've lost. What's the difference? The difference is leverage. We file the paperwork, document everything, but we don't serve them immediately. Instead, we use it as a teaching tool. When they inevitably come crawling back, and they will, you have a choice. Forgiveness with conditions, or legal consequences. I liked that approach. It gave me options while maintaining the high ground. After hanging up with David, I decided it was time for some strategic reconnaissance. I drove my rental car to the old neighborhood, not to see my family, but to observe the natural consequences of their choices. The apartment building looked normal from the outside, but I knew better. Without heat for 3 days in December, the pipes were probably starting to freeze. The building's emergency maintenance would have been called, and they'd discovered that the utilities had been accidentally disconnected. The building management would be very interested in speaking with the leaseholder, me, about resolving the situation. I parked across the street and waited. At 11:30 a.m., I watched a cummed truck pull up. 2 technicians went inside, came out 20 minutes later shaking their heads. One was on his phone, clearly explaining to someone that the disconnection was intentional and would require the account holder to request reconnection. At 12:15 p.m., Mom came outside to meet them. Even from across the street, I could see her gesturing frantically, pointing at the building, probably explaining that this was all a big misunderstanding. The technicians were polite, but firm. Without the account holder's authorization, they couldn't reconnect anything. That's when things got interesting. Mom pulled out her phone and called me. I watched her face as it went to voicemail, then watched her try again, and again. By the 4th attempt, she was visibly crying. I felt a brief pang of guilt, then remembered Jessica's smug face when she'd called me a martyr for paying bills. The guilt disappeared. At 1 p.m., Dad emerged from the building and approached the cummed truck. I rolled down my window slightly and could hear him raising his voice, demanding to speak to a supervisor, insisting that his daughter had made some kind of mistake. The lead technician was patient but clear. "Sir, your daughter called Friday morning and canceled all services." She was very specific about the timing and very clear that this was intentional. "We can't override a direct request from the account holder, but she doesn't live here anymore." "Sir, that's between you and your daughter. From our perspective, she's the customer and she canceled her services. If you want power restored, you'll need to set up a new account in your name." That's when Dad's face went white. Because setting up a new account would require a credit check, a deposit, and proof of income. And after 3 years of depending on me, their credit wasn't exactly stellar. I watched this unfold with the detached fascination of a researcher observing a carefully controlled experiment. Every reaction was predictable. Every consequence was logical. Every moment of panic was entirely self-inflicted. My phone rang, Dad's number. This time I answered. "Sarah, thank God. Listen, there's been some kind of mix-up with the utilities. Can you call Cummed and explain that you made a mistake?" "I didn't make a mistake, Dad." Silence. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I canceled the utilities intentionally. Just like you kicked me out intentionally." "Sarah, this is insane. You can't just leave us without power and heat. It's winter. You can't just kick your daughter out of her own apartment because your other daughter wants an art studio." But you did it anyway. That's different. How? Another silence. Longer this time. We're family, he said finally. Are we? Because family doesn't typically evict each other for convenience. I could hear him breathing heavily. What do you want? Now we were getting somewhere. I want you to understand what you've lost. I want you to spend some time thinking about what I've contributed to this family and how you've treated me in return. And I want you to consider whether Jessica's art studio is worth what this is going to cost you. What's it going to cost us? I almost smiled. Dad, you co-signed loans with me, your mortgage, the car, Mom's credit cards. When I remove myself from those obligations, what do you think happens? The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. You wouldn't. I already did. The bank called you this morning about the mortgage, didn't they? Sarah, please. We can work this out, can we? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you only want to work things out now that there are consequences. Where was the spirit of cooperation when Jessica demanded my bedroom? She didn't demand, Dad, stop. I have text messages, I have recorded conversations, I have 3 years of financial records that tell a very clear story about this family's priorities. Do you want me to start sharing those records with your business partners? With Mom's book club? With the neighbors who had to leave your cold, dark apartment on Christmas? The threat hung in the air between us. What do you want? He asked again, but his voice was smaller now. I want you to think, really think, about what kind of family kicks out the person who's been keeping them afloat. I want you to consider what it says about your values, that Jessica's convenience mattered more than my security. And I want you to understand that actions have consequences. How long? How long what? How long are you going to punish us? Punish. As if ensuring they experience the natural consequences of their choices was some kind of vindictive cruelty. Dad, I'm not punishing you. I'm just not rescuing you anymore. There's a difference. I hung up and drove back to my hotel. The afternoon brought a parade of increasingly desperate communications. Mom tried calling from different numbers, thinking I was blocking them. Jessica sent a series of texts that ranged from apologetic to furious to threatening. Even my aunt from Milwaukee called, having been recruited as a mediator. But the most interesting development came at 4 p.m., an email from Jessica's art school friend, Madison, who'd been at the disastrous Christmas dinner. Sarah, I don't know if you remember me, but I was at your parents' Christmas gathering. I wanted to reach out because I think there's something you should know. Jessica has been telling people that you're having some kind of mental breakdown, and that she's worried about your stability. She's also been saying that you're trying to financially manipulate your family because you're jealous of her artistic success. I thought you should know what narrative she's putting out there. I stared at the email for a long time. Jessica was actually trying to spin this as my mental health crisis rather than the natural consequence of their choices. She was positioning herself as the concerned sister dealing with an unstable sibling. That's when I decided it was time to stop being passive. I opened my laptop and began crafting what I privately called the reality report, a comprehensive, professional document that laid out the actual facts of our family situation. Not angry, not emotional, just data. The document included a timeline of every major financial contribution I'd made, screenshots of text messages and emails showing their treatment of me, bank records proving my claims, cuting documentation of the eviction demand, evidence of their current financial dependencies. I formatted it like the business reports. So I created at work. Clean, professional, factual. But I didn't send it yet. This was my nuclear option. Instead, I decided to take a different approach. If Jessica wanted to play the concerned sister card, I'd give her something to really be concerned about. I called the building management company for the apartment. Hi, this is Sarah Chun, the leaseholder for Unit 4B. I understand there's been an issue with utility disconnections. Ms. Chun, yes, we've been trying to reach you. The heat's been off for 3 days and we're concerned about pipe damage. We need to know when you plan to restore service. I don't. I'm terminating my lease effective immediately. The current occupants are no longer authorized residents. A pause. Ma'am, we'll need 30 days notice for lease termination, and you'll be responsible for any damages to the unit. I understand. Please begin the formal eviction process for the unauthorized occupants. I'll cover any associated costs. Ms. Chun, are you sure? This will be on their rental history permanently. I thought about Jessica calling me a martyr. about Dad's dismissive tone when he told me to find somewhere else to stay, about 3 years of being treated like a financial convenience rather than a family member. I was absolutely sure. After hanging up, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete clarity. For too long, I'd been trying to maintain relationships with people who saw me as a resource, not a person. The acquisition money didn't just make me wealthy. It made me free to see the situation clearly. But the evening brought an unexpected development. At 7 p.m., there was a knock on my hotel room door. I looked through the peephole and saw Mike standing in the hallway, looking uncomfortable but determined. I opened the door. "Hey," he said. "Mind if I come in?" "How did you find me?" "Dad told me which hotel." "He's desperate, Sarah. They all are." I let him in and ordered room service for both of us. Mike looked around the suite, the marble bathroom, the city view, the expensive furnishings, and whistled low. "This is nice. Business must be good. Business is excellent. Goldman Sachs bought my startup. 12.3 million. Mike nearly choked on his water. 12 million? Sarah, that's incredible. Congratulations. Thanks. We sat in silence for a moment. Mike had always been the reasonable one in the family. The one who'd escaped the dysfunction by moving to Seattle for college and never really coming back. "So," he said finally, "want to tell me what's really going on?" I spent the next hour walking him through everything. The 3 years of financial support, the gradual escalation of taking me for granted, the Christmas Eve eviction, and my systematic response. Mike listened without interrupting, occasionally asking for clarification, but mostly just absorbing the scope of what had been happening. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "Jesus, Sarah. I had no idea it was that extensive. I mean, I knew you were helping them out, but $370,000? $370,480. I have spreadsheets." "Of course you do." He shook his head. "And they kicked you out for Jessica's art studio?" "That was the final straw, not the first offense. The patent's been building for years." Mike rubbed his face. "Okay, I get why you're angry. But Sarah, they're family. Isn't there a way to work this out without destroying them?" "Mike, I'm not destroying them. I'm just not saving them anymore. There's a difference. The eviction notice isn't destroying them." I considered that. The eviction notice is a consequence of them refusing to pay their own bills while living in an apartment they're not authorized to occupy. I'm not making them homeless. I'm stopping subsidizing their housing. That sounds like a rationalization, does it? Or does it sound like holding adults accountable for their choices? Mike was quiet again. Then, "What do you want, Sarah? Like end game, what would make this right?" It was a good question. What did I want? I want them to understand what they threw away. I want them to acknowledge that their treatment of me was wrong. And I want to know that if I rebuild a relationship with them, it's because they value me as a person, not because they need me as a bank. And if they do that, then we'll see. And if they don't? I looked out at the Chicago skyline, thinking about the Goldman Sachs money sitting in my account, about the apartment lease I just terminated, about the family that had taught me the most expensive lesson of my life. Then I'll know where I stand, and I'll build a life accordingly. Mike nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I think you're handling this better than I would. If Lisa and the kids treated me the way they've treated you, I'd probably burn it all down. I might still burn it all down. We'll see what the next few days bring. Dad wants to come talk to you. So does Mom. And Jessica? Jessica is Jessica. She's still convinced this is all about jealousy and that you'll come to your senses once you stop being dramatic." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course she is. Will you see them, Dad and Mom, I mean? Under the right conditions. Which are? They acknowledge what happened. They take responsibility for their choices. And they demonstrate that they understand the difference between an apology and an excuse." Mike stood up to leave. "I'll talk to them. But Sarah, whatever you decide to do, I support you. You've been more generous to this family than any of us deserved, and they took advantage of that. It's about time someone called them on it." After he left, I opened my laptop and began drafting an email to my family. Not the nuclear option document I'd prepared earlier, but something more strategic, a roadmap for how this could end positively, if they were willing to do the work. The email was structured like a business proposal, asterisk, asterisk, subject. Terms for rebuilding our relationship, asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk, current situation analysis. Asterisk, asterisk, 3 years of financial dependency without reciprocal respect. Constructive eviction based on convenience rather than necessity. Pattern of prioritizing. Jessica's wants over my basic security. Ongoing narrative that frames my response as overreaction rather than consequence. Asterisk, asterisk, proposed resolution path. 1. Acknowledgements of the financial support provided. $370,480 documented. 2. Written apology for the Christmas Eve eviction and the circumstances leading to it. 3. Commitment to treating me as an equal family member rather than a financial resource. 4. Demonstration of financial independence for a minimum of 6 months. Asterisk, asterisk, alternative path. Asterisk, asterisk, legal action for restitution and emotional distress. Public disclosure of financial records and family dynamics. Permanent cessation of all family relationships. Asterisk, asterisk, timeline. 72 hours to respond with acceptance of resolution path. 30 days to complete acknowledgement and apology requirements. 6 months to demonstrate financial independence. The email was cold, professional, and completely fair. It gave them a clear path to redemption while establishing firm boundaries. Most importantly, it put the choice in their hands. I read it through 3 times, then saved it as a draft. Tomorrow, after I'd had time to think about Mike's visit and their level of desperation, I'd decide whether to send it. But as I got ready for bed in my expensive hotel suite, looking out at a city where I now had the financial freedom to build any life I wanted, I realized something important. I was no longer afraid of their answer. For the first time in years, I was free to want what I actually wanted, rather than what would keep the peace or maintain family harmony. And what I wanted was respect. Real respect, not the conditional acceptance I'd been settling for. Whether they could provide that remained to be seen. But either way, I'd already won the most important battle, the one for my own dignity. Tuesday morning would bring their response to the eviction notice, their reaction to the continuing utility shutoffs, and probably another round of increasingly desperate phone calls. I was looking forward to all of it, because for the first time in this whole mess, I held all the cards, and I was finally ready to play them. Tuesday morning brought clarity in the form of a single phone call that changed everything. I was having breakfast in my suite when my phone rang. Dad's number, but this time I could hear multiple voices in the background before he even spoke. "Sarah, we're all here. Your mother, Jessica, and me. We want to come see you. We need to talk. All of you? Yes, please. We're ready to discuss this properly." I could hear Jessica in the background saying something, then Mom shushing her. The desperation in Dad's voice was palpable, but what struck me was what I didn't hear. Defiance. For the first time since this started, there was no anger, no indignation, no insistence that I was overreacting. Room 1247. 1 hour. I spent that hour getting ready with the same methodical precision I used for important business meetings. Professional attire, hair pulled back, laptop ready with all my documentation. This wasn't going to be an emotional family reunion. It was going to be a negotiation, and I intended to negotiate from a position of strength. When the knock came at exactly 11 a.m., I opened the door to see 3 people who looked like they'd aged years in just 5 days. Dad's face was gray with exhaustion. Mom's eyes were red-rimmed and puffy. Even Jessica, usually immaculate in her artistic way, looked disheveled and uncertain. They filed into my suite quietly, taking in the marble surfaces, the city view, the obvious expense of my accommodations. "Nice room," Jessica said, but her usual sarcasm was missing. "It's comfortable," I replied. "Please, sit." They arranged themselves on the couch across from me like defendants waiting for sentencing. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Dad finally spoke. "Sarah, we made a mistake." "Which mistake specifically?" He looked at Mom, then at Jessica, then back at me. "All of it. The way we treated you, taking your contributions for granted, asking you to leave. All of it." "I didn't ask her to leave," Jessica said quietly. "I just said I needed space for my art." I turned to look at her directly. "Jessica, my name was on the lease. I paid the rent every month for 3 years. When you said you needed my bedroom for your art studio, what exactly did you think was going to happen to me?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "Did you think I'd sleep in the living room? Move into Mom and Dad's room? Just disappear? I thought you'd figure something out." You always figure everything out. I did figure something out. I left. Mom spoke for the first time. Honey, we never wanted you to leave permanently. We thought you'd stay with a friend for a few days until we could work out a better arrangement. What better arrangement, Mom? The apartment has 2 bedrooms. You and Dad share one, I had the other. Where exactly was I supposed to go when Jessica decided she needed my space? The question hung in the air because there was no good answer. They'd simply expected me to sacrifice my living situation for Jessica's convenience, without any real plan for where I would go or how long I'd be displaced. We weren't thinking clearly, Dad admitted. We were so focused on helping Jessica with her art career that we didn't consider how it would affect you. Her art career. I pulled out my laptop and opened a spreadsheet. Jessica, in the 3 years I've been supporting this family, how much money have you made from your art? She looked uncomfortable. That's not ... Art isn't about money. I didn't ask about your philosophy. I asked about your income. Maybe $800. Total. $800 in 3 years. I turned the laptop around so they could see the screen. I've spent $18,000 on your car payments alone. Your art supplies, your studio rent before you decided you needed my bedroom, your health insurance, your groceries, your share of utilities. Do you want to know what your artistic career has cost me? Jessica stared at the numbers on the screen. I never asked you to pay for all that. You didn't have to ask. You just assumed it would be there. You all did. I clicked to another tab. This is a breakdown of every financial contribution I've made to this family over the past 3 years. The total is $370,480. That's more than most people make in salary over the same period. Mom gasped audibly. Sarah, we had no idea it was that much. You had no idea because you never asked. You never said thank you. You never acknowledged that I was making sacrifices to keep this family afloat. You just took it for granted that I would always be there, always paying, always solving problems. Dad was staring at the laptop screen. How did we not realize ... because you didn't want to realize? It was easier to think of me as the responsible one who had everything figured out than to acknowledge that I was subsidizing your entire lifestyle. I closed the laptop. But that's not even the worst part. They waited. The worst part is that when push came to shove, when you had to choose between Jessica's comfort and my basic security, you chose Jessica. Without hesitation. Without discussion. Without even considering that I might have needs or feelings about being displaced from my own home. Jessica finally spoke up. I never said you had to leave immediately. I just said I needed the space. Jessica, it was December 23rd. It was winter. I had nowhere to go on no notice. And your response to my homelessness was to tell me not to be such a martyr. The words hit like a physical blow. Jessica actually flinched. I know how that sounded, she said quietly. I was frustrated and I said something cruel. You said something honest. You said what you really thought about my contributions to this family. The room fell silent again. Outside, Chicago continued its busy Tuesday rhythm. But inside my hotel suite, 3 people were finally confronting the reality of their choices. Mom broke the silence. What can we do to fix this? It was the question I'd been waiting for, but now that it was here, I felt a strange calmness. The anger was gone, replaced by something more powerful. Absolute clarity about what I would and wouldn't accept. I'm glad you asked. I opened my laptop again and pulled up the email I'd drafted the night before. I've given this a lot of thought, and I've identified what needs to happen for us to rebuild our relationship. I read them the terms I'd outlined, acknowledgement of the financial support, written apology for the eviction, commitment to treating me as an equal family member, and demonstration of financial independence. When I finished, Dad nodded slowly. Those seem fair. They're more than fair, I said. They're generous. Because the alternative is that I pursue legal action for financial exploitation and emotional distress, and we never speak again. Jessica looked shocked. You'd sue us? Jessica, you collectively took nearly $400,000 from me under false pretenses. Cooped me out when I became inconvenient. Most people would have called a liar on day one, but we're family, Mom said. Are we? Because I'm starting to think family is about more than shared DNA. I think it's about mutual respect, consideration, and genuine care for each other's well-being. And by that definition, I'm not sure we've been acting like family for a while now. Dad leaned forward. Sarah, we want to make this right. Tell us exactly what you need. I appreciated his directness, but I could see Jessica shifting uncomfortably. She clearly had something to say. Jessica, what's on your mind? She looked at her parents, then at me. I just think ... Maybe you're being a little dramatic about all this. I mean, yes, we made mistakes, but cutting off all the utilities, getting my car repossessed, starting eviction proceedings, that seems like overkill. And there it was. The fundamental disconnect that told me everything I needed to know about whether this family could actually change. Jessica, let me ask you something. When you decided you needed my bedroom, did you consider where I would live? I thought, did you consider it? Yes or no? No. Did you consider how I might feel about being displaced from my own home? No. Did you consider that asking someone to give up their bedroom might be a big request that deserved a conversation rather than a demand? No. Did you consider any of my needs, feelings, or rights in that situation? Jessica was quiet for a long moment. No, but you think my response is dramatic. Yes, I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. Jessica, you're a 28-year-old woman who has never paid her own bills, never lived independently, never faced real consequences for her choices. You've been insulated from reality by my financial support for so long that you literally cannot comprehend what it means to lose housing, transportation, or utilities. That's not... Let me finish. You think my response is dramatic because you've never lived in the real world where actions have consequences. You've never had to worry about making rent, keeping the lights on, or having a car repossessed because you couldn't make payments. From your perspective, these are just inconveniences that someone else will fix. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. But here's what you don't understand. I'm not someone else anymore. I'm not your financial safety net. I'm not your family bank. I'm not the person who will always be there to clean up your messes and enable your irresponsibility. I turned back to face them. I'm a millionaire now. I have more money than this family will ever need. But you'll never see a penny of it unless you can demonstrate that you understand what went wrong here and that you're committed to changing. The weight of that statement settled over the room. Mom and Dad looked stunned. Jessica looked confused. $12 million from the Goldman Sachs acquisition? I continued. More than enough to pay off your mortgage. Buy Jessica a house, set up trust funds for everyone. But money without respect is just enabling. And I'm done enabling dysfunctional behavior. Dad found his voice first. Sarah, we hear you. We understand. What do you need us to do? Before I could answer, Jessica spoke up. Wait, $12 million? Sarah, if you have that much money, why are you being so petty about a few $100,000? Why not just help us and move on? The question revealed everything wrong with Jessica's mindset, but it also gave me the perfect opportunity to explain why this was never really about money. Jessica, let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I had a client who won the lottery. $26 million. Within 18 months, his entire family was fighting over the money. His brother sued him. His sister stopped speaking to him unless she needed money. His parents expected him to buy them a new house. His cousins came out of the woodwork with sob stories and investment opportunities. I sat back down across from them. You know what he told me? He said the money didn't change who his family was. It revealed who they'd always been. The lottery just gave them permission to show their true priorities. I looked directly at Jessica. My startup success didn't create this family dysfunction. It just removed my willingness to pretend it doesn't exist. Jessica was quiet, but I could see her processing this. The question isn't whether I can afford to help you, I continued. The question is whether helping you would actually help you, or just enable you to continue avoiding responsibility for your choices. Mom spoke up. So what do we do? How do we prove that we've changed? You start by actually changing. Not promising to change, not explaining why you acted the way you did, not justifying your past behavior. You demonstrate through your actions over time that you've learned something from this experience. I pulled out a piece of paper and started writing. Here's what I want to see. Dad, I want you to get a job. A real job with a steady paycheck, not another entrepreneurial venture that depends on family loans. You need to prove you can support yourself and Mom without my help. Dad nodded. I can do that. Mom, I want you to go back to work too. Part-time, full-time, whatever you can handle with your health issues. But I want to see you contributing to the household income instead of relying entirely on other people. Mom looked surprised but nodded. Jessica, I want you to move out. Find your own apartment, pay your own bills, support your own art career. I want you to spend at least 1 year living independently before we discuss any kind of family financial assistance. Jessica's eyes widened. Move out? Where am I supposed to go? The same place every other 28-year-old goes when they need their own place. You find an apartment you can afford, you get a job to pay for it, and you figure it out. But I don't have any money saved up, then you get a job and save money. Like every other adult in America. The suggestion seemed to genuinely shock her, which told me everything I needed to know about how sheltered she'd been. Sarah, Dad said carefully, those are reasonable requests. But they'll take time to implement, I know. That's why I said 6 months to demonstrate financial independence. I'm not expecting overnight transformation, but I am expecting genuine effort and measurable progress. I stood up again. Here's what I'm willing to offer in return. If you can meet these conditions, if you can show me that you understand what went wrong, and that you're committed to building healthier family dynamics, then we can discuss what a rebuilt relationship might look like. And if we can't, Mom asked quietly, then we'll know where we stand. And I'll get on with building a life that doesn't include people who see me as a resource rather than a person. The finality of that statement hung in the air. These weren't threats or ultimatums. They were simple statements of fact about what I would and wouldn't accept going forward. Jessica was the first to speak. This is a lot. Yes, it is. Growing up usually is. She looked at her parents, then back at me. What if I can't do it? What if I try to live on my own and I fail? It was the first vulnerable thing she'd said since arriving, and I felt a flicker of the old protective instincts I'd had toward her. Then you figure out what went wrong, and you try again. That's what adults do, but what if, Jessica, stop looking for guarantees and safety nets and fallback plans. You're 28 years old, you have a college degree. You're capable of figuring this out if you actually commit to doing it. Dad cleared his throat. Sarah, can we discuss the apartment situation? The eviction notice, ... single quotes, what about it? Is there any way to work something out? Maybe we could take over the lease? I almost smiled. Dad, the lease requires a credit check and proof of income sufficient to cover the rent. Do you meet those requirements? His face fell. Probably not. Then no, you can't take over the lease. You'll need to find somewhere else to live. But where? I don't know. That's something you'll need to figure out as part of demonstrating your independence. The reality was finally sinking in. For 3 years, I'd been their solution to every problem. Their answer to every crisis, their backup plan for every poor decision. Now they were facing the prospect of actually having to solve their own problems. It was terrifying for them. And liberating for me. Mom started crying quietly. Sarah, we're so sorry. We never meant for things to go this far. I know you didn't mean it, but intent isn't enough anymore. I need to see changed behavior. Dad put his arm around Mom. We'll do whatever it takes, I hope so. Because I miss having a family that I can trust and respect. But I won't go back to being a family bank. We talked for another hour, working through the practical details of their transition to independence. I agreed to cover their expenses for 2 more weeks while they found jobs and secured new housing. After that, they were on their own. Jessica was quiet for most of this discussion, clearly overwhelmed by the prospect of actual independence. But as they were getting ready to leave, she turned to me. Sarah, I'm sorry. About the martyr comment, about taking your room, about all of it. I didn't understand ... I didn't realize ... What didn't you realize? It's how much you'd sacrificed for us. How much we'd taken from you. How wrong it was to treat you like you existed just to solve our problems. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was honest, and it was a start. Thank you for saying that. Do you think ... Do you think we can really fix this? I looked at my sister, seeing her clearly for the first time in years. Not as the artistic dreamer I'd been enabling. Not as the irresponsible child I'd been rescuing. But as an adult woman who is finally being asked to take responsibility for her own life. I think we can build something better than what we had. But only if you're willing to do the work. She nodded. I'll try, that's all I'm asking. After they left, I sat in my suite looking out at Chicago and thinking about the conversation. It had gone better than I'd expected in some ways, worse in others. They seemed to understand the seriousness of the situation, but I could tell it would be a struggle for them to actually follow through. That evening, I got a text from Mike. Dad called me. Said you guys had a good talk, but that you're requiring them to become financially independent. Proud of you, sis. I smiled and texted back, we'll see if they can actually do it. And if they can't, then I'll know I tried everything reasonable. And I'll get on with my life. Either way, you win. He was right. For the first time in years, I was in a position where every outcome was acceptable. Either my family would rise to the occasion and we'd build a healthier relationship, or they wouldn't, and I'd have definitive proof that the relationship wasn't worth preserving. 6 months later, I would know which kind of family I had. But that night, sitting in my expensive hotel suite with $12 million in my bank account and 3 family members finally taking responsibility for their own lives, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not the desperate hope that things would somehow magically improve without anyone changing, but realistic hope based on clear expectations and measurable outcomes. It was going to be an interesting 6 months, but for the first time since this whole mess started, I was looking forward to finding out how it would end. Update 6 months later. I never thought I'd be writing this update, but life has a way of surprising you. Dad got a job at a local accounting firm 3 weeks after our hotel meeting. It's not glamorous work, but it's steady, and he seems to take genuine pride in earning his own paycheck again. Mom went back to teaching part-time at the community college. Her health issues make full-time work difficult, but she's contributing what she can and seems happier having a sense of purpose beyond managing family drama. Jessica. Well, Jessica was the biggest surprise of all. She moved into a studio apartment across town and got a job at a local gallery. It doesn't pay much, but it's related to her interests and she's learning about the business side of art. More importantly, she's been paying her own bills for 4 months straight. Last week, she sold her first painting for $1,200. Not life-changing money, but money she earned entirely on her own. When she called to tell me about it, I could hear something in her voice I'd never heard before. Genuine pride in her own accomplishment. Sarah, she said, I never understood before how good it feels to actually earn something yourself. We had dinner last month. All of us together, for the first time since the Christmas disaster. It was awkward at first, but gradually we found our rhythm. No one asked me for money. No one assumed I would pick up the check. Dad actually insisted on paying, saying it was his turn to treat his daughter to dinner. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. I still haven't told them about the house I bought. A beautiful place in Lincoln Park with enough bedrooms for the family I hope to build someday. When the time is right, when our relationships have fully healed, maybe I'll host a holiday dinner there. But not yet. We're not ready yet. The trust is still rebuilding. The respect is still developing. The family dynamics are still settling into healthier patterns. But for the first time in years, I believe we might actually become the family I always hoped we could be. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the opportunity to prove they're better than their worst behavior. It took $12 million and a cold, dark Christmas for my family to find that opportunity. But they took it. And that, it turns out, was worth more than all the money I'd spent trying to buy their love and respect. Some lessons are expensive, but some lessons are priceless. This one was both.